Hello, welcome back to the C programming tutorial series. Okay, so today we're going to do an introduction to variables, and we're going to look at basic variable types. Okay, so the basic variable types are char, int, unsigned int, short, unsigned short, long, unsigned long, long, unsigned long, float, and double. Okay, so let's look at this program here. Okay, so chars. Char is a 1 byte data type that's typically used to hold single characters, but they can also be used to represent whole numbers ranging from -128 through 127. And then there's unsigned char, which is 1 byte in size, typically used to represent or hold single characters as well. But can also be used to represent whole numbers ranging from 0 through 255. Notice they're no negative because they're unsigned. Then there's ints, which are typically 4 bytes in size, but were originally 2 bytes in size. And when they're 4 bytes in size, they can be used to represent this big number that's about -2 billion through this big number that's about +2 billion. Then there's unsigned int, 4 bytes in size as well. If the int is 4 bytes in size, it's always the same size as the int, but they can hold negative values. So when they're 4 bytes in size, they can range from 0 through this big number, 4 billion and something. Then there's shorts, which are came later. And they're typically 2 bytes in size, and so if they're 2 bytes in size, they range from -32,768 through 32,767. Then there's unsigned short, which is going to be the same size as a short, but unsigned, so no negative numbers. So in this case, 2 bytes, in which case they range from 0 through 65,535. Then there's long. Long is 4 bytes in size, came later along with shorts, are typically 4 bytes in size. And so when they're 4 bytes in size, they're going to have the same range as an int. About -2 billion through about 2 billion. Then there's unsigned long, 4 bytes in size, are typically 4 bytes in size, the unsigned version of the long. And so they can't have negative values. So if they're 4 bytes in size, they range, again, the same range as an int, 0 through this 4 billion and something. And then there's long, typically 8 bytes in size. And so they range, if they're 8 bytes in size, from this big number here to this big number here. And then there's unsigned long, the unsigned version of a long. So it's going to be the same size as a long, but can't hold negative numbers because they're unsigned. And so if an unsigned long is 8 bytes in size, it's going to range from this 0 through this big number here. And then there's floats, which stands for floating point precision. They can hold not just whole numbers, but decimal numbers. And the floating point precision refers to the fact that there's floating point precision because the decimal point can float the way it's held in memory. So it's like the amount of precision can float. Typically 4 bytes in size, and so they range from this 0.000000 through this big giant number here, 0.00000. And then there's double, 8 bytes in size, and it's double the size of a float, and it stands for double floating point precision. And floating point precision, so it can also hold decimal numbers, not just whole numbers, with the decimal point where it's represented in memory can float in its position. And so it ranges from 0.000000 through this big giant number here. And so yeah, so those are the basic data types. And in the next tutorial, we'll actually look at how to use these data types. All right. So subscribe if you want to see more. Comment and like. Thank you. Peace out.